the Radioactive Papercuts Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kennedy. Joining me, the lovely, always present Noah King Bates. What you got going on today, Noah? Now you got a big day here.
Yes, I am in my rehearsals for the play that goes wrong at Circle Theater, and then also rehearsals for Music Man at Circle Theater. So I'm a busy boy right now.
Yes, if you're in the Grand Rapids area, go check Noah out on the stage because he's going to kill it, I'm sure. I am pumped for this episode. We're doing one more filler. We're going to be starting the boys coverage next week. Eventually, we are going to do that co-release with the Star Wars Stuff podcast, doing the Kenobi comic books. That's also going to be sweet. Couldn't do that this weekend because they're over at Star Wars Celebration having way more fun than us. So, screw you guys. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Ooh.
So what we're doing as a filler this week, we're gonna do top 10 comic book heroes, and I'm super excited for this because we have done top 10s and top 5s over on the Marvel Stuff podcast, but I've never been able to really express my love for DC properly over there. So this is going to be a combo of Marvel, DC. I think I have a character or two that are from neither, so we'll see how that goes as well. Noah's probably of the same opinion. Noah, did you include manga? I'm curious.
I did not, because that is a whole separate can of worms for me. So
I figured as much, but I wanted to double check. All right, so we're gonna go 10 through 1. I'll do 3, you'll do 3, and we'll go about it that way. Sound good to you, Noah?
Sounds good to me.
All right, we'll talk about each of them just a little bit. If I bring one up that you also have, you can say where it places on your list, and vice versa, and we'll talk it out. So number 10 for me was John Constantine.
Ooh, okay.
Did he make your list at all? Okay.
He did not.
He was a very close consideration. We are going to do honorable mentions at the end, and there were a few of them that definitely almost passed him, but I think just the fact that he's mystical, I've always liked Justice League Dark as like the niche of the comic book niche, and I'm a big fan of the darkness stuff, and the fact that like he has crossover with Neil Gaiman's universe as well for the Sandman universe. So I think because he's such a versatile character that he made the number 10 spot for me.
Okay.
Number 9 for me is from the Sandman universe, and it is Death, which some people may not consider to be, because in itself, it kind of seems like they'd be the antagonist of a story. But if you read the comic books or listen to the audiobooks, which I highly recommend if you haven't yet, she is the older sister of Dream Morpheus, the main character of the franchise. And she, instead of she doesn't go and kill people, she guides them into the afterlife. So she's more of just kind of an angel of death situation where if there's a short that came with Batman Death in the Family, and if you haven't checked that out yet, it's about 10 to 15 minutes long. I think you might be able to find it on YouTube. It explains her character perfectly because it essentially introduces her as a character in this, and she's talking to this guy, and the story progresses, and then eventually the guy realizes that she's the representation of death, and she's going to take him to the afterlife. And he asks for one last request, which she grants. And it's a lot of things that death is always portrayed as like a terrible thing that everyone's trying to avoid. So I like how they took death and flipped it on its head and made her an interesting character. I'm sure she didn't make your list because you're not a Sandman nut.
Yeah, no, she did not. But the way that you just described that, I know you've talked about her in the past. So she is more. The more you talk about her, the more intriguing she does become. So
there's a graphic novel on Hoopla, Noah. If you ever want to get around to it, it's entitled Death, and it's just a collection of her storylines throughout the Sandman comic book in the 80s and 90s, and highly recommend that as well. Okay. Number 8, I put Doctor Strange. Do I need to explain myself? Not really. I love me some Doctor Strange. His movies are fantastic, visually appealing. More of the mystic stuff, it's weird because I had an aversion to mystic stuff for the longest time with movies and TV shows and stuff. And then eventually I just kind of sort of embraced it within comic books. I was like, this is actually pretty cool. I like the way they're going about this because it just takes the fantasy world and puts it even further into fantasy. It's no longer the idea of Batman, where Batman, he's a fantasy character, but set in a realistic world. So Doctor Strange is just a fantasy character in a fantasy world, and it's wonderful to watch. So that is my 10 through 8. What about you, Noah?
Okay, so my number 10 is Beast Boy.
Ooh, nice one.
Yes, I've always been intrigued even before the Teen Titans cartoons came out. I just always thought that transforming into different animals. I love the Animorph books. It was always an intriguing thing. Then Teen Titans came out, and you got this laid back hero who's just trying to have a fun time with his friends, and I always thought that was intriguing. And then you get into his character and the experimentation that he's been put through,
He's so
and like
lovable. He's just a lovable guy.
he is, he's like the little brother that everybody wants. He's just
Yeah, why
the
can't
fact
my
that you
little
have
brothers
that little
transform
brother.
into animals? Those freaking amateurs. I'm gonna call them later and tell them how disappointed I am. They're not green and cool.
So I love his. He is the childlike wonder that makes up the Teen Titans and makes it so intriguing. It's not just about a bunch of rowdy teenagers who are living in the shadows. He created a whole new kind of dynamic to it. And then I love his run in Doom Patrol. I love Doom Patrol in general, but I mean, I very much enjoy what he does in Doom Patrol and being just kind of the kid like
No,
wonder in that as well.
don't hate me, but I have not finished Doom Patrol on HBO Max. I'm
I,
gonna
I
have to
just
get on
learned
that.
that. Just learned about the cancellation, and now with Brendan Fraser being Firefly, I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But boo,
Yeah,
I
but
love it.
it's okay. I'll get around to watching it because I've heard it's a really fun time. It's just I've watched most of season one and I just got distracted by other things. So maybe someday I'll make it back.
Oh yeah. Number two is
Number
Mikey.
9.
Number
But
nine.
yes.
Number nine. Number nine is Mikey from TMNT.
Okay.
Michelangelo. And what brought him super high and all his brothers are honorable mentions is because of the last Ronin.
So
Watching,
good.
watching that growth as a character, watching that I talked about Beast Boy's childlike wonder, watching what happens when your childlike wonder gets taken away from
Taken
you,
from you. Yeah.
and that is truly what made it super interesting. And I
Way to
just
alley oop a teaser, Noah, because we are going to be covering Last Ronin on Comic Book Club probably in the month of July, and it's a great 5-part series so far. Wonderful stuff. Leonardo is the only one that got an honorable mention for me, but that's the only Ninja Turtle that I put on my list.
all right. But yeah, I loved it. And then number eight is someone that we've talked quite extensively about on the Marvel podcast of lately, and that is Moon Knight.
Ooh, Moon Knight got an honorable mention for me.
Yes,
I wanted to put him on the list and I couldn't. I just couldn't do it, even though he's so good. I think it's recency biased. I didn't want to do that because you are a bigger Moon Knight fan than myself. You've read a lot of the comic books, and I will be delving into that, but I haven't yet. So really, if I'm gonna try and put him on my list above all the other guys I've loved for like a decade, it kind of feels fake. So he got an honorable mention.
no, I completely understand. Yeah, so he's on there for multiple reasons. I talk about it a lot on the Marvel podcast. But the mother of my son has DID and it's Jewish, so it's super intriguing to watch, to read, and to connect now on a whole separate level about DID and the Jewish faith and this new run that has been happening with Moon Knight, where they're like 2/5 of Khonshu, is amazing, and I cannot speak more highly about it. So definitely,
Yeah, text that
definitely,
to me because your boy wants to check it.
it's really good. All right, so that's my 10 through 8.
Okay. Why don't you do your 7 through 6? I guess we could just we'll just keep going back and forth. That
Yeah.
makes the most sense. Okay. So number 7, I put Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis.
Ooh.
It's a good
Oh,
pull, I think. The
it
cartoon
is a good pull.
was a high watch on my throughout my entire childhood. I love the character and his comic book runs. I mean, they keep getting canceled, but like the most recent one is like I think it's like 8 volumes, and I liked the whole thing. Just the intrigue of having a futuristic Batman with Bruce Wayne being the guy in the chair as opposed to the force that he's always been throughout time. And in the comic books, because in the show they didn't focus on the prior sidekicks much, with the exception of Return of the Joker. They had Tim Drake pretty highlighted and Barbara Gordon as well. But in the comic books, we get to see Dick Grayson again, and we get to see his relationship with Barbara Gordon a little bit. And Damian Wayne shows up in the comic books like a future Damian. So it's a really enjoyable read. The character, he's fun. I like him a lot. Side note: the Black Label Batman Beyond the White Knight. There's been 2 issues out so far. and I highly recommend. So if you guys are
Ooh.
comic book readers, go check that out.
You know I love my Black Label, so I'm definitely gonna have to hop up on that one.
Yes, sir. I assume Batman Beyond did not make your list.
He did not. I enjoyed it as a kid. I wasn't the big like as much as my stepbrother. I wasn't the biggest Batman Beyond fan, but I loved it. And going back and what was it? Future State. He plays a pretty big part in Future
Yep.
State for New 52. So I mean, I've enjoyed what I've read about him, but yeah, I'm not. It's like how you felt about Mikey, how you felt about Moon Knight. I like him, but I haven't read or watched enough for me to put him higher than certain people.
Totally respectable. My next couple are actually anti-heroes, but I chose them anyway. Number 6 is Winter Soldier for me.
Ooh.
Bucky Barnes having the tortured past. I mean, my love for that character has only grown throughout the MCU. I mean, he's just so great. He's got the tortured personality, but he's still trying to do the right thing. It's very similar to my next character, actually. But Winter Soldier himself, like the fact that he took on the role of Captain America for a bit, and he just feels out of place wherever he goes, and I feel for that character. He doesn't ever feel at home, which is unfortunate because he's such a fun character. So I mean, it's cool to watch and read about throughout the comic books. So that's why he gets my number 6.
Okay.
Number 5, which I'm sure is on your list, probably a little higher than 5. I put Red Hood Jason Todd as my number 5.
Yes, he is a bit higher on my list.
Yeah, you don't have to spoil it, but yeah, he made the list. We agree. I mean, part of the reason we're even doing this podcast together is because I interviewed you one time. We're like, oh yeah, we're the Bat Boys. Like
we're the Bat Boys.
Nightwing and
Batman's not on my list at all.
You didn't put Batman on your list? Well, spoiler, he's on mine.
Of the Bat family, he is probably the lowest. Like I put like Carrie Kelly above Bruce Wayne.
You killing me. Oh my god. Blasphemy. Get out of here. Anyway, Red Hood, it's very similar to Winter Soldier with the torture past type of thing. He was killed by the Joker, was resurrected. Even his mystical ties with the All Cast and that whole storyline that they really covered in Red Hood and the Outlaws in the New 52. Super fun storylines. Not something you would expect from that character because he was for a while a villain, more of just a brawler, and then all of a sudden he has these extra martial arts, and he has the what are the blades called? Just the all cast blades? No, the all cast ones. Yeah, they have a name. It doesn't matter, but yeah, he's great. I have a Red Hood tattoo for the people at home. It's right there, cover my elbow. So I'm a big fan of Red Hood. And you're going to talk about him even more, so I'll leave it at that for now. So who was your number 7?
My number 7 is Spawn.
Spawn's a great pull. It's a character that I've respected but never gotten into. I actually haven't even seen the original movie, and that's like a sin in the comic book community. So I need to get on that.
And that's what really, it was one of the first comic book movies that I was like, that was dark and I like had nightmares about, but I always wanted to continue to watch it. And I loved that about it. I love Michael J. White. I think that he is one step past Ghost Rider in terms of like what makes him interesting. And I've always thought Ghost Rider was cool, but there's something about the Spawn that I'm just like, it's like Venom mixed with Ghost Rider. This is so amazing. So I fell in love with him, and I finally picked up a comic like in my like early 20s, and I just fell in love with that story. Him and the Crow, who's an honorable mention, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. It's just like they were what made me go, all right, Marvel and DC are great, but sometimes you just gotta venture.
There's people that you have to. That's a weird thing that you learn later. I mean, later in life for some people as a comic book like enjoyer or the movie like watcher, you just like, yeah, they're the big brands, but there are other ones out there, and you kind of just have to acknowledge that like there's some pretty sweet heroes out there. I mean, even just we talked about the Ninja Turtles, which I think is IDW now. That's a completely different thing, and then The Boys, which we're covering next week. That's also not DC or Marvel, so it's just there's a lot of fun comic book characters outside of just the two main ones. So respect to that pick, Noah.
Yeah, number 6 is my Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen, okay. I don't know enough about her, so I could not put her anywhere near my list, but sell me on her.
So what really made me enjoy her is I thought that bringing her back after like all these like that multiverse, we had heard about multiverse and stuff like that, but when Spider-Verse finally hit in the comics with Miles and Inheritors and stuff like that, and we got Gwen coming back, and in her unit, like it was the first time that it was like multiverse truly was like what if expanded upon. And her story was so she was like in a punk rock band with MJ Watson.
I will say that her costume is one of the coolest like new costumes to come out of comic books in quite a while. It just looks so clean when you see it in the
So
panels.
clean. And then I love how they have created a budding romance between her and Miles.
Yep, it's cute.
Peter is too old and he's married with MJ. So they're like, yeah, this Gwen is around the same age as Miles. So it's like spiders are always inherited to like connect under some way. I'm like, oh, that's dope. I just love the fact that in her universe, like Peter became the lizard. Like her universe and what they did with a character who was loved, died, like forgotten, and then brought back, which is again why I love, and we'll talk about him later. I love the characters that you kill, people forget about, and then you bring them back.
Yeah, those are some of the best characters. I mean, even Jason Todd's a prime example of that, where like he was hated on as a Robin. People severely disliked him. Obviously, there's a controversy that there was one guy that kind of ruined the phone call thing, but the fact that they left his fate up to a hotline just proves how much people disliked him. And now he's getting like he was the featured villain in Arkham Knight, and he's gonna be co-starring in another video game. He's just a great character. So another one to shoot love at. And you're a big Spider guy, so I'm glad that I got you on the podcast because my brother has always been the one that's obsessed with Spider-Man. Always had respect for those characters, but I've never really like dove headfirst into any of them. So I'd be glad to give Gwen a shot.
Yes, and then my number 5, bit lower than some people would have expected, but T'Challa, Black Panther.
T'Challa, okay. He was the one that I fought between with John Constantine for my 10th pick. I love Black Panther, but he got an honorable mention.
Okay, yeah, he got my number 5 spot, and then everyone above him truly does make sense in my eyes. But T'Challa, what can I say? In terms of just the amount of recognition and truly watching a character rise to becoming a staple in Marvel and just in culture in general.
Yeah.
You like when I was a kid, Spider-Man was already a pretty big deal because of the animated series. Same thing with the X-Men, Batman. Like they were already cultural phenomenons when I was a kid. It wasn't you didn't see too much growth from that. But Black Panther, from Civil War till now, seeing like you can't go into any type of area that knows about the Avengers and Black Panther now not get brought up.
Yeah.
And I think that is amazing. Again, I didn't have a lot of Black Panther comics when I was a kid, but I had heard of him because he had the name of the Black Panther Party and stuff like that, and he was like an African king. He was an African king, super smart, like 8 PhDs.
Side note: his character was made before the Black Panther Party, so he just got like intertwined with that. And I'll let you finish your point just a second here. Recommend a podcast out to the listeners. The history of Marvel Comics Black Panther. It was a Sirius XM thing they ran. I just finished it a week or two ago, and it tells you everything you need to know about T'Challa, and it made me love him even more. So keep going.
Yeah, and he was just like he was truly he was Black Batman, but not as much of a dick. And then he slowly started to become more of a dick. But I mean, every story I've ever read that involves him becomes interesting, or I get intrigued by. I thought it was dope that he got invited to the Illuminati, and he was like, "Nah, this ain't for me." Like just certain things, right? Certain things he does are just super, like, well written. And he's beaten gods. He's fought 1-on-1 against Khonshu. He's gone up against Null. Like he's just an amazing character. I just can't speak too highly about him. The fact that he's low, again, when I talk about the other ones, and
I got a feeling of where you're going with your top ones, so that it makes perfect sense in my head where you're going to rank people. But this one, my number 4, a recent discovery that he's an important character to me. I've always loved him, but he's always just been in the back of my mind, and I never thought to read his comic books. And I just finished his most recent run, written by Chip Zdarsky, and that's Daredevil. He took my number 4 spot. I also just rewatched the Daredevil series, which obviously that helps as well. But just I remember as a kid, like I said, my brother was the Spider-Man fan, and we were just talking about this on the Marvel Stuff podcast, which guys go check out that episode. It's coming out the same day as this episode, so go listen. There was a cartoon movie that was a collection of episodes from the cartoon where it was Spider-Man and Daredevil, and I was just like such a fan of the way they told Daredevil's story going up against the Kingpin and like his interactions with Spider-Man, how he was like a perfect complement to what Spider-Man was lacking or kind of needed some assistance with, and vice versa. So they were a pretty cool duo that I never would have thought would, go together. And then they did it in the cartoon. I was like, oh yeah, these guys are sweet. So a little bit of recency bias maybe, but I don't think so. I mean, I pride myself on being a pretty heavy comic book nerd, and I'm confident ranking him as my number 4. So
oh yeah, no, I can give you credit for that. He's nowhere on the top of my list. I do enjoy most media that I've seen him in. Heck, I even enjoyed the Daredevil director's
Ben
cut.
Affleck. Yep, me too. I have it right over here actually.
Director's cut.
Yeah, you have to, yeah. But when I was a kid, I didn't mind the regular cut, so you got that going for you. I mean,
that's mostly because of the soundtrack.
Yeah, that soundtrack was fire, dude. Evanescence is up in there. Oh man, good stuff. My 3 and 2, I'm confident with what I said, and it was for a second I considered, and I was like, no, this has to be the right way. Number 3 is Wolverine. He is my highest ranking Marvel character. Outside of the Batman, my first ever Marvel movie was the first X-Men movie. It was on a VHS at my grandma's house, and I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I watched it anyway. And that was my intro to Wolverine, and the obsession has never stopped since then. He's just such a good character. It's hard when they realize that a character is super popular and they kind of like milk them for all they're worth a little bit, which is similar to my next character as well. But the way they just, you can't take away how awesome, how legendary Wolverine is in my eyes. So just, he's an icon. He's a staple in the Marvel universe. Not the cinematic one yet, but he will be. I can't talk highly enough about Wolverine. I mean, I'm a co-host on the Marvel Stuff podcast. Obviously, I'm obsessed with Marvel, and Wolverine was the beginning, middle, and continues to be one of the most important things for me.
And he is a true honorable mention, but in terms of X-Men, there was one that was not on this list, but super high. He's my favorite X-Men. He's an honorable mention, but Wolverine definitely high up on that list. If we did like a top 20, he would have been in there.
Yeah. Was Gambit your honorable mention?
No, it's
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah. I remember you cosplayed as Nightcrawler once, but no, Gambit's an honorable mention of mine. I love me some X-Men. I also like Nightcrawler.
The Lost Summers boy, as we like to call him.
Yeah, I guess so. But I'll do my number 2. I did choose Bruce Wayne Batman. Okay. And anybody that's ever met me in my entire life knows about my obsession with Batman. It's almost to the chagrin at this point. I met my wife's family and I was wearing a Batman shirt. I've got Batman tattoos, and now just every year I get some cheesy, childish Batman gift. And every year I'm like, all right, glad I'm still the Batman guy, but what am I going to do with this Batman bath soap? But whatever.
Use it. The Dr. Squatch.
Right. Yeah. I actually want to. I keep seeing that ad and I want to try it. Also, Dr. Squatch, why aren't you sponsoring this podcast yet? That's the real thing.
They might sponsor the Star Wars podcast because they have the Star Wars one, but as soon as y'all get some Batman, some DC soaps.
They do. They have 2 new ones now. They have the Batman soap and they have a Riddler soap, so they need to get on over here.
Yeah, Riddler's one of my favorite villains, which we'll talk about when we do that one.
Your thing, I don't know what happened. In 24 minutes, you just started sounding try now.
Weird. Are we
good? That was odd. Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, so, I'm just saying. So Dr. Squatch, Riddler, Batman. I mean, come on.
Reach out, man. I mean, we're taking any and all sponsors, so if you want to check it out. So that is my 4.
Boy, I'm lonely.
That's my 4 through 2. So I'll let you go next.
All right, number 4, the hip hop head himself, Static Shock.
Honorable
Virgil
mention for me. Another one that fought for my 10th place, and I couldn't do it. Love
I
me some
pulled that
Virgil,
trigger
though.
so hard. He was the first little black superhero that I felt like, oh my god, I could be him. This is life. And for me, being super awkward and not understanding where I fit in the world, that was watching his show, watching him have a smart little white friend helping him solve all of his problems. That's what I had. I was just like, this Static Virgil, that is my guy, and I cannot rave about the comics. Even I like the New 52 comic.
The 52 run was
Short
good.
as
I'm
it was.
excited for volume 1 of the new series to come out. I think it's June 4th. I have it written down on my phone. It might be June 7th, but I'll be reading that as soon as it comes out. I read issue 1. Really cool. The only thing about Virgil, though, like I'm not into is he doesn't really have a rogues gallery. He has the Bang Babies, but like none of them are really, they just don't do it for me. So that's
And
why I couldn't do it.
they don't do a lot in the cartoons. Of course, it was like the Bang Baby of the week, so you didn't get a
Right.
lot of substance to them. But I mean, his Bang Babies. You could tell so much story there if they got the right writers, if they got the right people to really, especially if they did like a black label where they really focus on drug problems, prostitution, just that dark inner city grime that
They're doing that a little bit, I believe, in the current run because it's the milestone stuff thing. So I think they're going to hit on some of that stuff as well. But good point. I also loved the cartoon, so that's why he was so close and was an honorable mention for me. But like I said, the Rogues don't do it for me, but I can completely respect him being in your top 4.
Oh yeah, number 3, Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
Okay, I got a feeling I know what one of the other ones is.
I mean, before there was Miles, there was Peter. Spider-Man has always been my favorite superhero. So I can't just outright say that, like, just because Miles popped up, Peter Parker's trash to me. That's not how that works.
Right.
And he truly, like, first tattoo I'm getting is with great power comes great responsibility. That is a quote that I've tried to live by. That is a quote that I hope to instill upon my kids or anyone who I've taught. So Peter Parker is truly he's an icon. He is the larger than life. He is Marvel's Batman in terms of recognition.
Respect on his name, dude. I believe he is the second most recognizable comic book character of all time, right behind Batman, I believe is what it is, and then Superman follows Spider-Man. I think in the current rankings.
Yeah,
I can't say anything bad about Peter Parker other than he was my brother's favorite, so therefore did not make it to one of my favorites.
My enemy.
No, that was the thing though. Me and my brother are weird. We always respected each other's favorites. Like I to this day haven't played any of the Spider-Man games because I'm like, that's my brother's toy. I can't play with that one. And he's the same way about the Arkham games. He won't play them. He'll watch a playthrough, but he's like, I can't. That's Josh's guy.
Yeah, I can't touch him. No. My number 2 is the bad Robin himself, Jason Todd.
Let's go.
Jason Todd. God. Jason is the reason. He's not the main reason, but he is the reason that I truly gave DC a chance. Because if you would have asked me before the age of like 18 to pick up anything outside of like the few that I had, which was Static and Justice League Unlimited, the show.
That show was bomb.
Your boy wasn't picking up a DC comic to save his life. Something about the death in the family, something about Under the Red Hood, even as I just respected. Right. And I know, like, for my love of the Bat family and my weird obsession with finding my true flaws in Bruce Wayne, I love the dark and gritty story that they found. They killed a kid. He has gone through so much trauma. And I found that to be so endearing. I found that
it's intriguing too. That's like, it just made his character so interesting. And like I love the dichotomy between him and Batman. And he's like, Joker killed me. How could you not take revenge, and then you just replace me. Like the way he comes into stories, and it made perfect sense why he was a villain at first. It's like, yeah, you'd be pretty pissed too if your dad just like let you get murdered and then just had another kid. Like that's
And then you
you.
show back up and he's like, yeah, family. It's like, what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He should have killed Joker. That's just how it goes. But Joker being one of the most iconic villains of all time, they weren't gonna let him do that. But I understand why Jason's pissed.
Oh yeah, I 100% understand why Jason's pissed. And I mean, the Robins are a true staple in terms of mantles. I would say
Yes,
that their mantle is even more important than Batman's mantle, like the passing down of the Batman mantle compared to passing down of the Robin
the
mantle.
Robin mantle. Yeah, true.
So I mean, the second is always considered like it's never going to have the same classiness of the first, but I think the way that they were able to change, like, yeah, he might not be considered one of your favorite Robins. He is one of your favorite like he's one of your favorite characters.
Yep.
You might not like Jason Todd's Robin, but you love Jason Todd, and I think he was one of the first people to really go above and beyond what it took to be the secondary person.
Yep. And I guess that's perfect transition. I mean, that's your number two, right? I might as well go with my
Yeah,
number one, and everybody here knows what it is. It's okay, but I got my boy, got Nightwing right there. Got the first issue that
yeah.
Nightwing ever showed up in. That's one of my pride of mine. My wife got
He
it
is
for
an
me for her
honorable
birthday.
mention. He is an
Yeah,
honorable mention
fair
for me.
enough. So Nightwing's really just the one that got me into comic books. I was always a big Batman fan because of the 90s Batman movies in the 80s. I mean, obviously 1989 was the first Batman movie as well. The animated TV show was my childhood. I mean, I even watched Adam West Batman. Like, your boy was obsessed with Batman as a character. So that's obviously why he got my number two on this list. But as I got older, I think in 2011, I believe. I mean, I always liked Nightwing because I mean, he had that cool cameo on the Teen Titans TV show, which another one of my childhood favorites.
Yeah.
Nightwing's great, but in 2011, I started picking up comic books, like legit comic books, which I had never really done as a kid. So I just took this character that I knew of and I knew I liked, and blue's my favorite color. So as a kid, I was like, oh, Bluebird associated with Batman, let's go. And then I started picking up the comic books, and I realized how like interesting of a character is. He's not my favorite Robin. Very similar to how you feel about Jason Todd. Is like Jason Todd's Robin's not that great. Nightwing's Robin, I think we even ranked Robins on a previous
Yeah, we
episode, so you
did.
guys know how we feel about it. But Nightwing, he's the original, so you got to give him props for it is. I've always felt like just a relationship with Nightwing. I kind of feel for him, being the oldest of my siblings, so he's got that older sibling mentality, feeling like he's got to be there for the other Robins and still like be the shining example that Batman looks to and things along those lines. And I've just never related to a character more than I do with Nightwing. His eskrima sticks are sick, obviously. The acrobatics, super fun to watch. The electricity, like everything about the character is wonderful. I've read every single comic book probably that he's ever been the titular character of. So your boy is researched, and I can confidently say that he gets to keep my number one for now until the end of time.
All
And
right. The moment everyone's been waiting for. The
and
true
everyone
shock
saw
of
coming.
no person ever. Miles Morales, Spider-Man is my number one.
Yes, sir.
To the point where Liam is so lucky I didn't have more pull on his name.
He was getting the Miles name for sure.
I mean, if he wasn't getting Noah, he was getting Miles. So
Next one, you got the next one. It's fine.
yeah, let's go. I don't know what I could say about Miles enough. I mean, the reason for his creation was probably one of the most emotional moments of my life. And I mean, his character wasn't created until I was in college. Like I was already a grown up by the time they announced of a black Spider-Man and the fact that he came, like his creation was due to Donald Glover, someone that I speak highly about and on all facets, as well as Barack Obama and Brian Michael Bendis feeling like his mixed son could never really see himself as a character he was writing for. I thought that was truly an emotional moment. And like I said about the Static Shock, being able to see myself as a character when I was a young boy, that wasn't something that I genuinely got. And now being able to see Spider-Man, my favorite character of all time, remove his mask and it's someone who looks like me. That truly, I cannot go on and on about how much that means to me as just not as a nerd who, when I was a kid, had to feel like I was getting picked on for being a nerd. But now seeing these kids, seeing these little black boys taking off a mask, being Spider-Man, and like not pretending like, oh, they are Miles. They get to be that character. They get to feel that hip hop that surges through Miles the way that it surges through them. And then the Into the Spider-Verse movie, just the cultural and the oh my god, I could go on tangents about Into the Spider-Verse and what that meant, not only just for like black people, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, kids, nerds, artists. I loved Miles Morales, and unless there's a weird turn of events, I don't think he will ever not be in my number one spot. I look forward to everything that he does. I look forward to everything that Marvel and Sony and whoever has the rights to him, what they do. His stories are always intriguing. His connection to the Spider-Verse, I've always loved, and I can't speak more highly of it.
One of the greatest animated movies of all time, so we can just acknowledge that right here, right now. Into the Spider-Verse is so good. So, yeah, I think the audience knows us a little bit better now, Noah. I'll go through some of my honorable mentions. John Stewart, Green Lantern.
He was one of my honorable mentions.
Yep, Justice League Unlimited, the way he was featured within that universe. Always preferred him over Hal Jordan. I mean, Hal Jordan's fine, but I mean, John Stewart was just like he was the precedent. Like I said, Leonardo was an honorable mention of mine. Static Shock as well, another honorable mention. Black Panther, and then I put Green Arrow as an honorable mention, and Arsenal, both of them. Green Arrow, it didn't feel like, I don't like him as his comic book character that much. It's the TV show that really did it for me. The Stephen Amell TV show. There was one, I was always obsessed with it, and like when the first season came out, we DVR'd the whole thing, and then my dad was out on like sick leave for a couple weeks or something, like during summer when I was probably high school or middle school, whatever it was, and we got to like stay up till 2 a.m. watching like 4 or 5 episodes of Green Arrow in a row, or Arrow. And so I just the relationship that like it just helped build the relationship with my dad more than it already was. So it's kind of an important thing. But we did talk comic book heroes, and I was like, his comic book version is good too. It's funny. It's more unique because Arrow kind of did knock off Batman a little bit, which we're okay with that, I guess. So Green Arrow's, he's pretty far up there, but I couldn't do it because it's his comic book version, not live action. And then Arsenal, very similar thoughts. I've liked every version of him that I've seen. Roy Harper's great. When he was in Red Hood and the Outlaws, he was great. Part of the original Teen Titans, also sweet. That character doesn't seem like he can do wrong. So I just keep him as an honorable mention as well. Who would you have, Noah?
All right, some of my honorable mentions: Dick Grayson, John Stewart, John Johns, the Green Martian Manhunter. I've always enjoyed what he brings to the table for the Justice League, as well as the very few Martian Manhunter like things that I've read where he's like just a detective and it's almost like a crime noir, and he just happens to be a Martian. I'm just like, yeah, this is dope. I like this. This is weird. Sam Wilson's Captain America was an honorable mention, as well as Cyborg. Those two, I just haven't. They don't have stories by themselves in which I'm like, I'm going to pick that up. But when I see them in the group aspect and I see them interact with other people, I'm like, I like you. I just haven't gotten enough of you to be like, I'm going to purchase something that's just you.
Right. It's tough, but it's one of those things. Yeah, Cyborg was my favorite character in Teen Titans, other than Nightwing, because I was like, Robin's great, but like Cyborg was the highlight of that show for me. So yeah, he was on my close guy to consider it as well. But thank you guys for listening. That was fun. Me and Noah had a great time. Noah's got to go do some other stuff, but we're going to do top 10 comic book villains probably after we cover the boys. It's going to be sweet. We're going to have Rachel's going to come back, and you can remember her from The Witcher fame. She was a co-host over, and she did the Secrets of Dumbledore podcast with me as well. So she's a fun alumni that we're going to bring back for this show. And following that, one of Noah's buddies is going to come through and do a couple episodes. But thank you guys for listening. This has been a fun time. Love you so very much.